The day they announced it, my mom didn't even sit down like it was a conversation. She stood in the kitchen doorway with her arms folded, chin lifted, the way she did when she wanted to look calm while delivering something sharp. My dad stayed at the table, steady and quiet, tapping the rim of his coffee mug with that slow patience he used whenever he wanted to seem reasonable while someone else did the cutting. My sister Eva leaned against the counter with one hip, scrolling on her phone like the whole thing was a mild inconvenience before her real life resumed. And me? I was holding a plate I hadn't even finished drying. A dish towel hung from my wrist. I remember that detail because my brain, for some reason, decided to cling to normal objects when the room started to tilt. "We've made a decision," my mom said. I waited for the part where she'd pretend my opinion mattered. The part where she'd say, "We've been thinking about it and we want to hear what you think." That part never came. My dad nodded once, like a witness in court. "It's about college," my mom continued, "about the money we saved." That sentence made my stomach tighten with something that felt almost like hope. We weren't rich. We weren't even comfortable. We were the kind of family that talked about prices in whispers, drove cars until the doors sounded tired, washed plastic bags and used them twice. If there was a college fund, it had been built from sacrifices that smelled like overtime and cheap coffee and skipped vacations. Then she said it. "Your sister is more talented," my mom said, and smiled like that was a compliment to the entire family. "She's smarter. She's always been gifted, so we're investing in her." The dish towel slipped off my wrist. The plate almost slipped too. My dad added soft and rational, "It's not about favoritism. It's strategy. Strategy, like we were a business, like I wasn't their kid." I looked at Eva. She didn't even look up. My mom went on, "We can't afford two tuitions. We have to be realistic. Eva has more potential." She paused like she expected me to nod along and admire the logic. I waited. Maybe I misheard. Maybe the next sentence would be, "And we'll do what we can for you too." But the silence stretched and turned sharp. "So," my mom said, "you'll need to work. Figure it out. You can do community college later or trade school or something. You're practical. You've always been good at managing." Managing. That word hit like a small slap dressed up as praise. Ava finally looked up, eyes bright with the lazy satisfaction of someone being crowned. "Thanks," she said, like they'd bought her a nice jacket. I stared at my parents. "You're giving her all of it?" My dad set his mug down carefully. "Don't make it dramatic." "I'm not making it dramatic," I said, though my voice was already climbing. "I'm asking if you're giving her all the college money." My mom's smile thinned. "Yes, because she'll actually use it." That was the part that stung, because it wasn't just about money. It was about what they believed I was worth. Heat rose in my face. "And what am I supposed to do?" "You're a boy," my mom said, like that explained everything. "You can work. You can hustle. Eva needs stability and support." "So my future is hustle and hers is support?" I said. Eva snorted softly, as if the answer was obvious. My dad leaned forward. "You'll be fine. You've always been independent." Independent? Another word that sounded like strength until you realized it was their way of saying we won't help you. I looked at the towel on the floor, then back at them. "So that's it? Decision is final?" My mom nodded. "Final." My dad added, "Don't take it personally." I laughed once, short and bitter. How else would I take it? "We don't want an attitude," my mom said. "We're doing what's best for the family." For the family, meaning for Eva. I opened my mouth to argue, to fight, to make them see. But something strange happened instead. A calm settled into my chest. Not peace, not acceptance, clarity. I looked at my dad, who wanted credit for being fair while letting my mom do the cruel part. I looked at my mom, who treated love like a budget and decided where it should be spent. I looked at Eva, already imagining herself as the star of a life she hadn't built. And I realized something that made my hands stop shaking. This wasn't the first time they chose her over me. It was just the first time they said it out loud. I picked up the towel slowly, folded it, placed it on the counter, and said quietly, "Okay." My mom's shoulders dropped like she'd won. "Good." Eva smiled. My dad nodded like the problem was solved. No one noticed I hadn't agreed. I had just stopped begging. And standing there in my own kitchen with a dish towel between my fingers, I made a decision they didn't hear but would later feel. If they weren't going to invest in me, I would, without their permission, without their applause, without their control. If you asked my parents, they'd swear they loved us equally. They'd say it with offense in their voices, like the accusation itself was unfair. But equality in our house wasn't measured in love. It was measured in attention, patience, forgiveness, and chances. Ava got those in endless supply. I got instructions. When we were little, my mom called Eva my bright girl. She'd say it at family dinners, at the grocery store, in front of neighbors like she was announcing a miracle she personally produced. This one's going to do something big, she'd tell relatives, patting Eva's head like she was blessing her future. When people looked at me, my mom would pinch my cheek and say, "And this one is steady, practical, good with his hands." Practical, steady, responsible. Words that meant don't expect too much from him. If Eva forgot her homework, my mom sat with her at the kitchen table, helping, praising, telling her she was tired and busy and so smart. If I forgot mine, my dad said, "That's on you," and walked away. When Ava cried, my mom rushed in like it was an emergency. When I cried, my dad frowned like I was embarrassing myself. Eva got to quit things. I didn't. Eva tried piano and didn't like it, so my parents said no pressure, follow your passion. I tried soccer and didn't like it, so my dad said finish the season, don't be weak. Eva wanted a new phone because the camera was better. She got it. I wanted new shoes because my soles were split. My dad said duct tape. Eva got explanations. I got lectures. Eva got comfort. I got expectations. Even the family stories were written like that. Eva's tantrums became she was always passionate. My quietness became he's not emotional like her. Eva's mistakes became she's learning. Mine became he should know better. Sometimes the favoritism was subtle, sometimes it was loud, but it was always there, like a permanent smell you stop noticing until you leave the room. I remember a parent-teacher night in 8th grade. My teacher told my parents I had potential in math and problem solving. She said I was the kind of kid who could do well in engineering if I had support. My mom smiled politely, nodded, then asked, "And what about Eva? She's more creative, right?" She asked it like my teacher had only mentioned me by mistake. I remember getting a small local scholarship in high school for community service. It wasn't huge, but it meant something. I came home with the letter, proud, and my mom said, "That's nice." The same way you say it when someone tells you they got a new mug. Then she called my aunt to talk about Eva's amazing potential because she got asked to be on some student committee. Eva didn't even attend the meetings, but my mom talked about it for a year. I also remember the moments when the favoritism got dressed up as fairness. When I got a part-time job at 16, my dad told me it would build character. When Eva got a part-time job at 16 and quit after 2 shifts because the manager was mean, my mom said, "Work environments can be toxic. We don't want her confidence damaged." Confidence. That was always the excuse. Ava's confidence had to be protected like a fragile object. My feelings were treated like something I should control, hide, swallow. So when the college fund decision happened, part of me wasn't shocked. I'd been trained for it. Trained to stand slightly behind her in every family photo. Trained to clap louder for her achievements than for my own. Trained to be mature while she got to be celebrated. The education money was just the biggest, clearest example of what had been true for years. They didn't see 2 kids they wanted to support. They saw Eva as an investment, and me as a backup plan. The first few weeks after the decision, my parents acted like everything was normal. They spoke about Eva's future like it was a movie they were producing. My mom printed brochures, my dad talked about majors. They drove to campuses on weekends like we were on a family trip, except it wasn't a family trip. It was an Eva tour. They took pictures of her in front of university signs. My mom posted them online with captions like "So proud of our girl, bright future ahead." I remember seeing the post and realizing she didn't mention me once, not because she had to, but because it wasn't even in her mind. Eva applied to a private college 3 hours away. Not because it was the best program, because the name sounded expensive. When her acceptance letter arrived, my mom cried like someone had won the Olympics. My dad hugged Eva and said, "We knew you could do it." No one hugged me. No one said, "We're proud of you too." I stood there clapping, smiling, playing my role like I'd played it my whole life. Inside, something colder began forming. Eva moved into her dorm like a celebrity. My mom helped her decorate, bought matching bedding and cute lamps and little signs with motivational quotes. My dad bought her a laptop for school. Eva posted pictures like she'd reinvented herself. New outfits, new friends, new smile. At first, she attended classes. She'd call home and talk about professors and workloads and campus life. My mom listened like it was music. My dad bragged to coworkers. Then slowly, the calls changed. Eva started talking less about classes and more about parties. She posted photos from festivals, glitter on her cheeks, drinks in her hands, arms around strangers like they'd been friends forever. "College experience," she captioned. My mom laughed when she saw it. "She's living," she'd say, like living was something you proved with a wristband and a blurry selfie. Then came travel. At first, a weekend trip with friends, then spring break, once in a lifetime, then a summer study abroad that looked suspiciously like vacation. Eva would call from airports, loud and excited. "You should see this place," she'd gush. "It's unreal." My mom would get teary. "I'm so happy you're getting these experiences." The first time I asked the obvious question, "Is she going to class?" my mom gave me a warning look. "Of course she is." I said her post didn't look like class. My dad sighed. "Don't be jealous." Jealous, their favorite weapon. It turned every question into a flaw in the person asking it. I said I wasn't jealous. I was worried she was burning money. My mom's face hardened. "We trust her." I reminded her about times Eva promised something and didn't do it. My mom slammed her fork down. "Don't start. Eva is under pressure." Under pressure from what? Parties? I didn't say it. I knew better. If I criticized Eva, I became the villain. So I watched. I watched my parents send money like it was a reflex. I watched Eva treat that money like oxygen. I watched her change majors twice, then stop mentioning majors, then stop mentioning classes at all. And I watched my parents ignore every sign, because admitting Eva was wasting their sacrifice would mean admitting they had made a choice. A bad one. It was easier to stay in denial and blame the world later. Meanwhile, I was living my own version of figure it out. I worked at the hardware store after school, then after graduation I picked up a second job stocking shelves at night. I slept in short blocks, I ate cheap food, I saved every possible dollar because something in me refused to become desperate. I started taking online classes late at night on a secondhand laptop I bought with my own money. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was building my education in the scraps of time and money I had, while Eva was finding herself on planes. One night, I came home and found my mom on the couch staring at her laptop. Her face was pale. My dad stood behind her, silent. On the screen was an email from the college. Eva had withdrawn, not taking a break, not transferring. Withdrawn. My dad asked, tight voice, "Did you know about this?" My mom turned to me like I'd hidden a crime. "Did you?" "No," I said and meant it. My dad's jaw tensed. "Why would she do this?" my mom whispered. "Maybe she's overwhelmed." Then Eva called. She sounded upbeat, calm, like she was reporting a change of plans for dinner. "Hey," she said, "so I'm thinking I might not be a school person." My mom's voice turned soft instantly. "Sweetie, why didn't you tell us?" "I didn't want drama," Eva said. "I'm just finding myself." My dad forced a chuckle. "Finding yourself is expensive." Eva giggled. "Dad, relax. It's fine." My mom asked where she was. Eva hesitated and admitted she wasn't in her dorm. My mom's voice turned too sweet. "Where?" "In Miami," Eva said. My dad snapped, "Miami?" "It was a deal," Eva rushed. "Super cheap flights. I needed a break." "With what money?" my dad demanded. Silence. Then Eva said it like it was nothing. "The money you sent. You always send it." My dad's face turned red. My mom's eyes filled with tears. Eva added, "Don't freak out. I'll come home soon. This is my life, you know?" My mom whispered, "We gave you that money for education." Eva's tone snapped sharp. "And I learned. I hate school. Is that not education? Like life education?" My dad slammed his fist on the table. "You wasted it." "I didn't waste it," Eva snapped. "I used it. You chose to support me." And just like that, the truth hung in the room. They chose, they supported, they spent. Eva hung up after saying she'd call later. My mom collapsed into sobs. My dad paced like an animal trapped in a cage. I stood there, watching the foundation crack, knowing exactly what would happen next. Because when people can't face their own decisions, they look for someone else to carry the weight. And in our family, there had always been one person built for carrying things. Me. It didn't even take a week. Eva came home with a tan, new clothes, and a suitcase full of souvenirs. My mom hugged her like she'd returned from war. My dad stayed stiff, still angry, but he still helped carry her bags, because even in anger, he couldn't stop serving her. Eva acted like the whole thing was a misunderstanding, like my parents were being dramatic, like she was the victim of expectations. "I just want to be happy," she kept saying, as if happiness required burning through a college fund. The confrontation happened on a Sunday afternoon. My mom said we need to talk. Eva rolled her eyes and sat on the couch, phone in hand. My dad stood with arms crossed. I hovered near the hallway, already knowing I'd be pulled into it. "The money is gone," my mom said. Eva shrugged. "Okay." My dad snapped. "Not okay. That money was for your future." "So what?" Eva said. "You want me to apologize for living?" "We sacrificed." My mom's voice trembled. "You always say that. I didn't ask you to," Eva said. "We gave you everything," my dad exploded. "Yeah, you did," Eva shot back. "That's what parents do." And then, like clockwork, my mom's head turned toward me. "Ethan," she said softly. My spine stiffened. "What?" "You're her brother," my mom said. Eva looked at me like I was an accessory being brought into the scene. "You should have guided her," my mom said. "Guided her?" I repeated, incredulous. My dad seized it immediately. "You knew how she was." "How she was," I echoed. "You've always been the responsible one," my mom said. "You could have talked sense into her." Eva smirked. "Yeah, Ethan. Why didn't you stop me?" I stared at my parents. "You didn't let me be part of the decision. You told me it wasn't my business." My mom waved her hand like that didn't matter. "This isn't about that." "You could have warned us," my dad said. "I did," I snapped. "I asked if she was going to class. You said I was jealous." My mom flashed her eyes. "Don't talk to your father like that." My dad lowered his voice. "So now what? You're going to stand there and say you have no responsibility?" "No responsibility. For money I never touched, for decisions I never made, for a sister who treated my parents like an ATM." My hands started shaking, but my voice came out steady. "That's exactly what I'm saying." "Ethan, we're family," my mom said, and it landed like a chain disguised as love. "Eva needs help," my dad said. "We need help." My mom said they weren't asking me to give everything, but I had a job. I could contribute, maybe take out a loan. "A loan?" I cut in. "You have good credit," my mom said quickly. "You're stable." "Stable, responsible, useful." Eva said, casually cruel. "It makes sense. He doesn't even need college, right? He's like the worker type." The worst part wasn't Eva saying it. The worst part was my parents not correcting her. They looked at me like a tool that refused to work. That night I didn't sleep, not because I was surprised, because I finally understood the full shape of it. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the house creak, replaying the words like a loop. "You should have guided her. You're her brother. You're responsible. You have good credit." In their world, I wasn't a son they wanted to invest in. I was a resource, a safety net. They excluded me from the choice, then dragged me into the consequences like I'd signed a contract. But that night, another memory surfaced, one I hadn't thought about in years. I was about 10, and my parents were fighting in the garage. Their voices were low, sharp. I had been looking for my bike pump. I paused outside the door, frozen, listening. My dad was saying, "It's just a loan. I'll pay it back." My mom was saying, "You promised you'd stop." He said, "It's not a problem." She said, "It becomes a problem when we have to borrow from the kids' savings." Kids' savings. I remember the phrase like a ghost whispering. That night in my bed, it came back and made my stomach drop. There had been money issues before the college fund story. There had been secrets. I sat up, heart racing. The story in my head had always been, we're poor, but honest. We work hard, but things are tight. The college fund is precious. But what if the college fund had been used before? What if there wasn't as much as I thought? What if the strategy wasn't only favoritism, but also desperation dressed up as logic? That thought didn't excuse what they did. It made it darker, because if they had been lying about money for years, then their choice wasn't only about Ava being talented, it was also about controlling a narrative, about hiding damage. 2 days later, my mom called a family meeting. My dad sat in his chair. My mom sat on the couch with hands clasped like she was praying. Eva sat like a queen, phone in hand, chewing gum. It looked like the same scene, but I felt different walking into it. I didn't walk in as a kid who hoped for fairness. I walked in as someone who finally saw the machine. "We've been talking," my mom said, voice overly calm. "We need to move forward," my dad said. "We're going to help Eva get on her feet," my mom said. "But we need support." My dad leaned forward. "You're going to contribute." He didn't ask. He stated. I took a slow breath. "No." The word landed heavy. My mom blinked. "Excuse me?" "I said no," I repeated. My dad's face tightened. "Don't start with that." "I'm not starting," I said. "I'm ending something." Eva laughed under her breath. "Drama." My mom leaned forward. Ethan, listen. We're not asking you to pay for everything, just help, because we're family. You chose how to spend the money, I said calmly. I wasn't part of that choice. You're part of this family, my dad's voice rose. I'm part of the family when you need someone to carry consequences, I said, heart hammering but voice steady. But when decisions were made, I was told to work and figure it out. My mom's eyes filled with tears immediately. After everything we've done. You didn't do this for me, I said quietly. You did it for Eva. Eva's face hardened. So you hate me now? I don't hate you, I said. But I'm not paying for your choices. My dad slammed his hand on the armrest. You're being selfish. I nodded once. If selfish means I'm not taking out loans for money I never spent, then yes. My mom whispered, We're drowning. I'm sorry you're stressed, I said. But I'm not your solution. Eva scoffed. Wow, so what are we supposed to do? Work, I said. Budget. Face reality. Eva's eyes widened like I'd insulted her. My mom whispered, So you're abandoning us. I'm not abandoning you, I said. I'm refusing to be blamed for a decision you made without me, my dad's jaw clenched. So that's your final answer. Yes, I said. Final. My mom cried loud enough to make me feel like a monster. Eva stormed off. My dad stared at me like I'd become a stranger, and I realized something important. They weren't shocked because I said no. They were shocked because they assumed I couldn't. The next week the house turned into a quiet war. My mom punished me with sadness. My dad punished me with silence. Eva punished me with contempt. Sometimes she'd walk into a room and sigh loudly, as if my presence lowered the oxygen. Sometimes she'd say things like, Must be nice being the hero of your own story. Or, Don't worry, Ethan. When you're old and alone, you can hug your principles. I kept my face blank. I kept working. I kept saving. I kept building my plan. Then the first real twist hit. It wasn't dramatic at first. It was an envelope, plain, with a bank logo. I opened it at the mailbox with numb fingers, expecting junk. Instead, it thanked me for my application and regretfully informed me about approval. Application, in my name, my address, my information. My throat tightened so hard it hurt. I walked back inside and put it in front of my dad. What is this? I asked. He frowned. What? An application in my name, I said. My mom went pale instantly. My dad's expression shifted from confusion to annoyance to something that looked like cornered defensiveness. It's just a mistake, he said. A mistake doesn't include my information, I said. My mom whispered, Ethan. I stared at her. Did you do this? She hesitated for half a second too long. My dad cut in. It wasn't like that. So it was you, I said. We were trying to figure things out, my dad snapped. We were going to talk to you. After you got the money, I said. My mom cried. We're desperate. You tried to take out a loan in my name after I said no, I said. My voice was calm, and that was the scariest part. My dad slammed his palm on the table. Don't act like we're criminals. We're your parents. Parents don't do this, I said. My mom sobbed. We weren't going to do it without you knowing. You already did it without me knowing, I said. My dad leaned in. We needed options. Then apply in your name, I said. My mom whispered, We can't. Our credit... There it was. Their credit was damaged. I turned toward the living room. Eva was sitting upright now, listening. You knew? I asked her. She shrugged. Not my problem. You have good credit. And then she smiled, small, cruel, like she believed this was simply how the world worked. Take from whoever is stable. I folded the letter carefully. Okay, I said. My mom's hope flickered. Okay? Okay, I repeated colder. Now I know who you are when you're desperate. My dad snapped that I was being dramatic. My mom cried. Eva rolled her eyes. And something inside me locked. That night I didn't just decide to leave. I decided to protect myself like my life depended on it. Because suddenly it did. I set up alerts on my bank account. I pulled my credit report. I found more than I expected. Not just the loan attempt. There were 2 hard inquiries. There were credit card offers in my name. Someone had been phishing. I confronted my mom the next morning. Not yelling, not crying. How did you even get my information? I asked. Her eyes darted away. We're your parents, she said weakly, like that was permission. That's not an answer, I said. My dad, from the table, said, "We kept your documents safe." Safe. Another word that sounded like care until you realize it means control. They had my social security card, my birth certificate, my old tax forms. They had everything because they'd always insisted I was too irresponsible to keep important papers, even though I was the one who paid my bills on time while Eva forgot her own phone password. I asked, "Where are my documents?" My mom hesitated. "In the drawer." I said, "Give them to me." My dad stood up. "Don't be disrespectful." "Give them to me," I repeated. My mom retrieved them with shaking hands, a fat envelope of my identity, held hostage in a kitchen drawer like a weapon waiting to be used. I took them upstairs to my room and hid them in my backpack. That night, I slept with my backpack against the wall like it was a guard dog. A few days later, I checked my savings and saw withdrawals. Small amounts. Not huge enough to scream about, but enough to hurt. Enough to reveal someone was dipping in. My pulse roared in my ears. I scrolled. 2 withdrawals, 1 transfer. I went downstairs and put my phone on the table. "What is this?" I asked. My mom glanced, went pale. My dad walked in, saw it, and his face darkened. "We were going to pay it back," my mom whispered. "When?" I asked. My dad slammed his hand down. "We needed to keep the lights on." "So you stole from me," I said. "Don't say it like that," my mom sobbed. "What do you want me to call it?" I asked. "Borrowing without asking?" My dad stepped closer, voice rising. "You live here? You eat here? You want to act like you're not part of this?" "I want to act like you don't get to take my money because you made a bad bet," I said. Eva burst out of her room, drawn by the tension. She read my phone and scoffed. "So you're mad about money now?" "Yes," I said, "because money is what you burned. Money is what they tried to replace with me." "You're dramatic," Eva said. I leaned in slightly, voice low. "No, I'm awake." And that's when my dad finally shouted what he'd been holding in his chest like a weapon. "Fine, leave. Go be independent somewhere else." The way he said independent wasn't praise. It was a curse. So I did. I packed a duffel bag. Not neatly, not calmly. My hands shook so hard I dropped socks on the floor and didn't pick them up. My mom followed me, crying and begging. My dad stayed downstairs, furious. Eva slammed her door like a judge ending a case. I walked out without a speech. The cinematic moment wasn't a scream. It was the door closing and the cold air hitting my face and the sudden realization that I didn't know where I was going, only that I couldn't stay. I moved into a tiny apartment above a laundromat. The walls were thin. The hallway smelled like detergent. The heater rattled like it resented being asked to work. But when I closed my own door that first night, I breathed like I'd been holding my breath for years. I changed every password. I froze my credit. I set up alerts for everything. I went to the bank and moved my savings into a new account only I could access. The bank teller looked at me with sympathy when I explained it had been a family situation. She didn't ask questions, which somehow made it worse, because it implied she'd seen this before. Like I was just another responsible kid crawling out of a family that tried to monetize him. For the first month, my phone became a weapon. My mom called at all hours. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes she was angry. Sometimes she begged. My dad called once, voice cold, accusing me of breaking the family. Eva didn't call at all, but she posted online constantly, smiling in photos as if nothing had happened, as if she were still living her life education, while the rest of us choked on consequences. Then my mom texted, "Your father lost his overtime. We might lose the house." There it was, the hook, the emotional grenade thrown into my new piece. My hands shook, my chest tightened. The old role tried to rise in me, the shock absorber, the fixer, the one who makes everything okay. I stared at the message for a long time, then typed, "I'm sorry. I can't be your solution." Then I turned my phone off and cried. Not because I regretted leaving, because I wished they had been different, because boundaries hurt even when they're necessary, especially when they're necessary. Around that time, another twist surfaced, not from my family, but from someone else entirely. My aunt called me, not crying, not yelling, calm, sharp. "I didn't know," she said. "Know what?" I asked. She hesitated. "About your dad's debt." My throat tightened. "What debt?" Silence on the line. Then my aunt sighed, like she was tired of secrets. "He borrowed money from your grandparents years ago. He never paid it back. Your mom, she covered it. She used savings. That's why they've been tight for years." My stomach dropped. The garage memory, the phrase kids' savings. It wasn't imaginary, it was real. I asked, voice low, "Why are you telling me this?" "Because your mom has been calling everyone," my aunt said. "She's asking for money, she's telling people you abandoned them, and I don't like lies." My throat burned. "So the college fund?" My aunt exhaled. "Wasn't what you thought. It was smaller. They were already bleeding. Giving it all to Eva was partly favoritism and partly panic. They thought if Eva made it, it would save them. They wanted a success story they could ride. Ride. Like a wave. Like a lottery ticket." I sat on my cheap couch, staring at the wall, feeling sick. It didn't change what they did. It made it worse, because it meant they weren't just unfair. They were reckless. They gambled again and again, and whenever the gamble failed, they looked for someone stable to pay the bill. My aunt said, "I'm not saying you should rescue them. I'm saying, don't let them convince you you're the villain. Your father has been hiding messes for years." After I hung up, I felt a strange thing. Relief. Not the happy kind. The kind you feel when you finally know the truth. When you stop blaming yourself for a story that was rigged. Then the family gathering happened. My aunt hosted it, ironically, the same aunt who had called me. My mom begged me to come. Just for an hour. People are asking questions. Meaning the family image was cracking, and my mom feared shame more than she respected my boundary. Against my better judgment, I went. The moment I walked in, conversations paused. Eyes flicked toward me. My mom rushed over and hugged me too tightly, whispering thank you like she was grateful I was helping her keep the mask on. My dad stood near the fireplace, stiff. Ava sat on the couch like a queen. And then my aunt, who was apparently still tired of secrets, tried to be helpful, in the worst way, by forcing a public confrontation. She clapped her hands and announced a prayer for the family. Then she looked right at me and asked if it was time to step up. A public guilt trap, designed to corner me with shame, designed to make me fold because everyone was watching. Eva leaned forward slightly, enjoying it. My mom looked down, but she didn't stop it. My dad stared at me like he dared me to defy the family in front of the family. My hands trembled. My voice came out steady. "Step up for what?" I asked. "For your family," my aunt said. I nodded slowly. "Okay," I said. "Then let's be honest about the family." Silence fell like a curtain. "My parents gave Eva all the college money," I said calmly. "They told me to work and figure it out. Eva spent it. When it ran out, they blamed me. Then they tried to take out a loan in my name. Then they took money from my account without asking." "Gasps," someone whispered. My mom made a strangled sound. My dad's face went red. My aunt's face tightened because she didn't expect the truth to be that ugly. "I'm not done," I said, because for once I wasn't going to protect the story that harmed me. I looked at my dad. "You called me independent," I said, "but you used my identity to fix your problem." My mom whispered, "Please?" I looked at her. "No, not please. Not now." Then I said something I didn't plan but was true. "If you think I'm cruel for refusing to be robbed, you can think that. But you don't get to call it family when it's theft." The room exploded into murmurs. Relatives looked at each other, shocked. Some looked at my mom with pity. Some looked at my dad with disgust. Ava tried to laugh, but it came out thin. "You're making yourself the hero," Eva said loudly, trying to turn it into a joke. I looked at her. "No," I said. "I'm making myself free." Then I walked out. Outside, in the cool air, I felt relief, because the story had finally been told out loud. And once the truth is spoken in public, it can't be stuffed back into silence. After that, the family didn't just unravel. It fractured. My mom called me the next morning, voice shaking with rage. "How could you humiliate us?" I said. "You humiliated me for years. You just did it quietly." My dad left a voicemail, venomous. "You turned everyone against us." I didn't respond. Eva posted a vague story online about toxic people and boundaries, as if she had invented the concept. People commented hearts. It made me sick because I realized how good she was at performance, how her whole life had been a stage where she played the star and everyone else played support. Then another twist hit. Eva didn't just waste money on travel and parties. She had been building a persona online, and it was expensive. Not just clothes and trips. A brand. I found out because a stranger emailed me. The subject line said, "Payment past due." I almost deleted it, thinking it was spam. But my name was in it, correctly, full name. My new address, somehow. I opened it and felt ice crawl up my spine. It was from a marketing company. It said I owed money for a contract signed in my name. A content package, monthly fee, past due, late penalties. I stared at the PDF attached. My signature was there, sloppy but familiar enough to make my stomach twist. Except I hadn't signed anything. I called the number. A woman answered, bored. I explained I didn't sign. She asked for the last 4 digits of my social. I froze. How did they have that? I said, I didn't authorize any of this. She sighed. We have a signed contract and an initial payment. Initial payment? From my account? The little withdrawals. It wasn't just lights. It was funding Eva's fake life. I hung up, shaking. That night, I sat at my kitchen table in my small apartment and stared at my documents. My birth certificate, my social security card, my bank statements, my credit freeze confirmation. My brain felt like it was splitting. My parents hadn't just tried to borrow my stability, they had used it to keep Eva's story alive. Not education, not survival. Image. I called my mom. She answered instantly, breathless, like she'd been waiting. What now? She snapped. I said, Did you sign a contract in my name for Eva? Silence. Then my mom whispered, We didn't have a choice. I felt something cold settle in my chest. So you did. My mom started crying. It wasn't for parties, Ethan. It was for... For what? I asked, voice shaking. For her brand? For her online life? My mom sobbed. She said it would pay back. She said she could become an influencer. She said it was an investment. Investment. Again. Always that word. Always a bet. I whispered, You stole my identity to fund her fake success. My mom cried, We were trying to fix things. We were trying to make something work. I laughed once, bitter. You tried to make her story work by destroying mine. My dad grabbed the phone, voice furious. Stop talking to your mother like that. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, I said. You're gamblers. Not with cards, with people. He shouted my name like it was a threat. I said, If this isn't resolved, I'm filing a police report. Silence. My dad's voice dropped. You wouldn't, I said. Watch me. Then I hung up. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely type, but I filed the report. Not because I wanted my parents arrested, because I needed a record, because I needed protection, because love doesn't cancel crime. The police officer I spoke to wasn't dramatic. He asked questions like he'd heard it 1,000 times. He told me to keep records, freeze credit, notify companies, dispute contracts, document everything. When I hung up, I felt sick, but I also felt clear. This was no longer about hurt feelings. This was about survival. 2 days later, my mom showed up at my apartment unannounced. I opened the door and saw her standing there with a small bag and swollen eyes. For a second, I thought she'd come to beg again, or attack, or plead, but she looked broken. I'm not here to ask, she said quickly. I'm here to give. She held out a folder. I took it, confused. Inside were documents, bank statements, credit card statements, loan notices, things I'd never seen, things they'd hidden. My mom whispered, I can't live with it anymore. I flipped through the papers and felt my stomach drop again and again. There wasn't just one debt. There were several. Some in my dad's name, some in my mom's, some from years ago. Hidden, rolled over, paid with other loans, a cycle, a quiet collapse. And there was something else, a ledger, a handwritten list, dates and amounts. Notes like Eva rent, Eva travel, Eva networking, Ethan withdrawal. They had been tracking what they took from me, not because they planned to pay it back, because they planned to justify it. My mom started crying quietly, like she was trying not to make it a performance. Your father, he has a problem, she whispered. What problem? I asked, though I already suspected. My mom's face twisted. Gambling. Not always. Not constant. But enough. Enough to ruin us and then pretend it was just hard times. The garage memory hit like a punch. My mom wiped her cheeks. He promised he stopped. Then Eva, she needed money and he panicked. He thought if she succeeded, it would fix everything. He thought if we kept the story alive, it would become true. My throat tightened. And you? My mom's voice broke. I let it happen, because I didn't want to admit my marriage was a mess. I didn't want to admit we were failing as parents. I didn't want to admit we used you. There it was, the sentence that mattered. Used you. My mom looked up at me, eyes raw. I made you a tool. I didn't move. I didn't comfort her. I didn't attack. I just let the truth sit there between us like a heavy object we both had to hold. She said, Eva doesn't even know the full extent. She thinks you're just mean. She thinks you're jealous. She doesn't know your father signed things. She doesn't know we took money. She doesn't know we used your name. My jaw clenched. Then tell her. My mom flinched. If I tell her, she'll fall apart. I stared at her. Good, I said. Let her fall. She's been floating on other people's backs. My mom nodded slowly, like she knew I was right but hated it. That night, my mom didn't ask for money. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She asked for something else, and it shocked me. Can you come to a meeting? She whispered. What meeting? She swallowed. A counselor, a financial counselor, and maybe a group for your dad. He won't go alone. He says he'll go if you're there. I laughed, tired. So I'm still the solution. My mom shook her head quickly. No, she whispered. You'd be the witness, the boundary, the only person he can't lie to anymore. I should have said no. I should have protected my peace. But something in me, something complicated, wanted to watch the truth happen. Wanted to make sure my dad couldn't twist the story again. Wanted to see if my mom was finally choosing honesty over image. So I said, I'll come. Once. Not to rescue, to confirm. My mom nodded like she understood. The meeting was in a bland office that smelled like paper and coffee. My mom sat rigid, clutching a folder. My dad sat with his jaw clenched like he was being forced into court. Eva wasn't there. My mom said she didn't know. The counselor was calm. He asked questions. My dad tried to minimize. It's not that bad. We had some setbacks. Eva's situation. He kept trying to turn it into Eva's story again, like she was the center. The counselor stopped him. We're not discussing Eva right now, he said gently. We're discussing your finances. My dad's face tightened. He tried to blame the economy, medical bills, bad luck. Then the counselor asked, Have you taken money from your son without permission? My dad's eyes flashed toward me. My mom's hands trembled. Silence. The counselor waited. My dad exhaled harshly. Yes, he said, like it tasted poisonous. We did. The counselor nodded, still calm. Have you used his identity for credit applications? My dad's throat bobbed. He tried to deny, then stopped. Because I was there. Because the folder existed. Because lying would collapse. Yes, my dad said again, quieter. I felt my chest tighten. Not victory. Grief. Because hearing it out loud made it real in a new way. Official. Ugly. The counselor said, That's a serious violation. My dad snapped, We're family. The counselor's voice stayed gentle. Family does not excuse harm. My mom started crying quietly. My dad's eyes watered, and that surprised me more than anything. My dad never cried. He got angry. He went silent. He punished. He didn't cry. But there, in that beige room, he looked exposed. He whispered, I thought I could fix it. By breaking him? The counselor asked softly. My dad flinched. I spoke for the first time. You didn't break me, I said, voice steady. You just revealed yourself. My dad stared at me like I'd slapped him. The counselor asked my dad about the gambling. My dad denied at first. Then my mom opened the folder and slid a statement across the table. It showed cash withdrawals at weird hours, transfers to accounts, payments that didn't match bills. My dad's shoulders slumped. Yes, he whispered. I messed up. It wasn't an apology. Not yet. It was admission. The counselor laid out steps, debt plan, accountability, therapy, legal protection for me, repayment schedule. Then he said something that changed the air. Your son has grounds for legal action. He has chosen not to pursue it yet. That is not guaranteed forever. My dad's face turned pale. My mom looked at me with fear, and I realized, for the first time, they understood I had power. Not power to punish, power to refuse, power to protect. After the meeting, my dad followed me to the parking lot. He looked smaller under the streetlights. He said, I didn't want you to think I was a bad father. I stared at him. Then you should have acted like a good one. He flinched. He said, I thought you could handle it. That sentence used to sound like praise. Now it sounded like an excuse. I handled it because I had to, I said. Not because you believed in me. He swallowed hard. I'm sorry, he said, and the words sounded unfamiliar in his mouth, like he'd never practiced. I nodded once. Not forgiveness, not yet, just acknowledgement. Then he said, Eva doesn't know. I know, I said. My dad's eyes flicked away. If she knows, she'll hate us. I said, if she knows, she'll finally grow up. A week later, Eva found out anyway. Not from my mom, not from my dad, from the marketing company that started calling her directly. She called me at midnight. Her voice was furious. Why are they calling me? They said my contract is in your name. What does that mean? I sat up in bed, heart pounding. It means someone signed your contract using my identity. Eva scoffed. You're lying. You're trying to ruin me, I said, calm. Eva, listen to me. I filed a police report. There's a folder. There are bank statements. There are loan inquiries. There are withdrawals. Silence. Then Eva's voice went smaller. Mom and Dad would never. I almost laughed. Not humor, pain. They did, I said, and they did it for you. Eva started breathing fast. No, 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 they wouldn't. I realized she wasn't angry at me. She was panicking because her story was collapsing. The idea that her brand wasn't built on talent but on theft, she couldn't handle it. Eva whispered, So I'm the reason you left? I said, You're part of it. Eva snapped, I didn't ask them to steal. I said, You asked them to fund a fantasy. When funding ran out, they stole. That's the chain. Eva started crying suddenly. Ugly, raw, not performative. I didn't know, she whispered. I believed her, and that was the worst part, because it meant she was ignorant by design. They had kept her childish to keep her grateful. They had kept her entitled to keep her dependent. Eva said, What do? I didn't soften. You get a job, I said. You cancel the contract. You stop spending. You face reality, she whispered. I can't. You can, I said. You just don't want to. Silence. Then she said something that shocked me. Can you come with me to talk to them? I hesitated. Not because I wanted to protect them, because I wanted to protect myself from that house, but I also wanted to see Eva's illusion break, because sometimes the only way someone grows is when their truth becomes unavoidable. So I said, Yes, once. We met at my parents' house the next evening, the same kitchen, the same doorway where my mom had said final, the same table where my dad had tapped his mug like a judge. Eva stormed in first, eyes red. My mom looked like she'd aged 10 years. My dad sat stiff. Eva threw her phone onto the table. Why are companies calling me saying my contract is in Ethan's name? My mom flinched. My dad's jaw tightened. Eva turned to my mom. Tell me the truth. My mom started crying. Eva, sweetie? Don't call me sweetie. Eva snapped, and there was a strange echo of the earlier breakdown, but sharper. Tell me. My dad tried to speak. Eva cut him off. No, you're quiet when it benefits you. Speak now. My dad's face went red with shame and anger. My mom whispered, We were trying to help you. Eva laughed bitterly. By stealing from him? My mom sobbed. We didn't know what else to do. Eva spun toward my dad. Did you sign things in his name? My dad's mouth opened, closed. He looked at me like he wanted permission to lie. I gave him nothing. My stare was a wall. My dad exhaled. Yes, he said. Eva stared at him like he'd punched her. My mom whispered, We were drowning. Eva's voice shook. So you threw Ethan into the water. Silence. Eva turned to me, tears spilling. I didn't know, she whispered again. I nodded slightly. I know you didn't. That's still not an excuse for how you treated me. Eva flinched. Then she did something I never expected. She looked at my parents and said, I'm done being your project. My mom gasped. Eva continued, voice trembling but steady. You used me. You used him. You used the idea of me being special to avoid fixing your own mess. My dad snapped, Watch your mouth. Eva snapped back, No, you watch yours. You told Ethan he was a worker type. You told him to hustle while you handed me money and called it love. My mom sobbed harder. Eva wiped her cheeks, furious at herself for crying. You ruined him, she whispered, then corrected. No, you tried to, and he left anyway. Eva looked at me, voice small. You were right. I didn't say I told you so. I didn't soften. I just said, Now you choose who you want to be. Eva nodded, shaking. Then she did the most cinematic thing, not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. She took off the expensive bracelet she wore like a trophy, placed it on the table, and said, Sell it. My mom stared. Eva said, "Sell my stuff. Pay Ethan back. Cancel my contracts. I'm getting a job." My dad barked, "You're not—" Eva slammed her hand down. "Yes, I am." My dad stood up like he might explode. Eva didn't flinch. My mom cried. I stood there watching a family myth die in real time. Eva looked at me again. "I don't know how to do anything," she whispered. I said, "Learn." She nodded. That night, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt exhausted, but also something else. The heavy weight of being the only person who had told the truth for years was finally shared. Over the next months, the consequences landed where they belonged. My parents downsized. My dad went to meetings, not perfectly, not consistently at first. He hated admitting weakness, he hated being watched, but he did it because he had no other choice anymore. The story was broken. My mom got a second job. She stopped calling relatives to beg. She stopped painting me as the villain because the evidence made it impossible. She began paying me back in small amounts. Painfully small, but real. A transfer every 2 weeks with a note, repayment. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't dramatic. It was accountability. Eva got a job at a cafe again. She lasted longer this time. She came home with sore feet and didn't call it humiliation. She called it reality. Some nights she texted me short messages like, "Today sucked, but I stayed," or "I wanted to quit, I didn't," or "I apologized to a customer." That felt weird. I didn't become her friend overnight. I didn't become her mentor. But I read those texts and felt something shift. Not forgiveness, something like cautious respect, like watching someone finally step onto the ground after floating for years. One evening, months later, Eva asked to meet me at a diner. She looked different, not in the glamorous way, in the human way, less shine, more weight in her eyes. She said, "I used to hate you." I looked at her. "I know." She swallowed. "Because you made me feel guilty just by existing, like your pain was a mirror." I nodded. Eva stared at her hands. "I didn't think about you as a person. That's horrible, but it's true." I didn't comfort her. I said, "Keep going." She flinched, then nodded. "I'm trying," she whispered. "And I know trying doesn't erase what I did." I said, "It doesn't." Eva took a shaky breath. "I want to pay you back too," she said. "Not just Mom and Dad, me." I raised an eyebrow. She pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table. It wasn't a lot. Cash, small bills, the kind you earned slowly. "I saved it," she whispered. "From tips." I stared at it. The envelope wasn't magic. It didn't fix everything, but it was something Eva had never done before. Give instead of take. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just nodded and said, "Good." Eva's eyes filled. "Do you ever think we could be normal?" I took a breath. "Normal isn't a switch," I said. "It's a habit." She nodded slowly. After that dinner, I walked back to my apartment above the laundromat and felt something strange. I had built my life in the quiet. Skills, savings, stability. I was taking classes part-time now, paid with my own money. I was moving forward without needing permission. And my family, broken, messy, imperfect, was finally moving too. Not because they suddenly loved me correctly, but because my refusal forced them to stop using me. My dad called one night, months later. His voice was rough. "I went 6 months," he said. "6 months of what?" I asked. 6 months without gambling," he said quietly. I paused. "Good," I said. He cleared his throat. "Your mom told me not to call you unless I had something real to say." I almost laughed. "Smart." He hesitated, then said very quietly, "You didn't deserve that." 3 words. Not poetic, not cinematic. But in our family, it was an earthquake. I said, "No, I didn't." Silence. Then my dad said, "I thought you were strong enough to carry it." I said, "Being strong doesn't mean being used." He whispered, "I know." That was it. No long apology, no dramatic breakdown, but I could hear something in his voice I'd never heard before. Shame without anger. Accountability without blame. A year after the kitchen verdict, my life looked nothing like I expected. I wasn't rich, I wasn't famous, I wasn't winning in a flashy way, but I was stable. I was building skills. I was moving forward without someone constantly pulling me backward. I had friends now who knew me as me, not as Eva's brother, not as the responsible one, not as the fixer. I had a routine that belonged to me. I had silence that felt like safety. My family wasn't magically fixed, My mom still struggled with guilt and tried sometimes to overcompensate with praise that felt late. My dad still struggled with pride and sometimes fell into old defensiveness. Ava still struggled with entitlement in small ways, the reflex to expect comfort, the instinct to run from pain. But the difference was they had to face those struggles now, because my life was no longer available as a cushion. Sometimes at night, sitting alone, I'd think about that day in the kitchen, the dish towel, the plate, the smug smile on Ava's face, the way my mom said final. And I'd realize something brutal but freeing. That final was the best thing they ever gave me, because it forced me to stop waiting. It forced me to stop pleading for fairness from people who didn't know how to give it. It forced me to build a life where approval wasn't required. They invested everything in her talent because it made them feel like their sacrifices meant something. They wanted a success story to justify the years of struggle and secret debt and quiet shame. They didn't just choose Ava. They chose an illusion. And when the illusion started cracking, they tried to glue it back together with my stability, my identity, my money, but I didn't let them. And here's the truth that landed in my chest with a strange mix of pain and pride. The truth that finally felt like mine. I wasn't the failure. I was just the one they never bet on. I was the one they assumed would keep standing no matter how much weight they piled on my shoulders. I was the one they thought would stay quiet to keep the family story clean. They didn't expect what I did next. I didn't scream. I didn't destroy them. I didn't take revenge. I walked away. I locked my future. I told the truth out loud. I forced consequences to land where they belonged. And I invested in myself so hard and so quietly that one day I woke up and realized I wasn't surviving anymore. I was building. And for the first time in my life, the thing my family called independent wasn't a curse. It was a choice.